I stood in my walk-in closet, staring at a dress worth more than my childhood home, and realized I'd never felt more worthless in my life. My hands trembled as I read the text message again. She was never good enough for our family. Make her understand that. It was from my mother-in-law, Cordelia Van Der Berg, but it wasn't sent to me. It was sent to my husband. And his response? 3 words that shattered my world. I know, mother. That morning, I woke up as Natalie Reeves Van Der Berg, wife to one of the most powerful tech moguls in Europe. By noon, I would discover that my entire marriage was built on lies, manipulation, and a conspiracy so twisted it would take me years to untangle. But here's what Cordelia didn't know. I wasn't the naive small-town girl she thought she'd destroyed. I was about to become her worst nightmare. The marble floors of our Geneva penthouse gleamed under the morning light, each surface so polished I could see my reflection everywhere I looked. Sometimes I wondered if that was intentional, a constant reminder of who I'd become, or rather, who I was supposed to be. Natalie, must you always be so slow? Cordelia's voice cut through the silence like broken glass. She stood in the doorway of my bedroom, immaculate as always in her Chanel suit, her silver hair pulled back so tightly it seemed to stretch her already severe features. I took a breath, counting to 5, like my therapist taught me. Good morning, Cordelia. I don't care what you are doing. The charity board meeting is in 2 hours, and you look like you've just rolled out of bed. Do you have any idea how this reflects on our family? On Adrian? Our family. Never my family, never your son and his wife. Always a hierarchy, always a reminder of where I stood. I'll be ready in 30 minutes, I said quietly, turning back to my closet. 30 minutes? Natalie, it takes you an hour just to choose the right shoes. How you ever convinced my son to marry you remains one of life's great mysteries. She laughed, that cold, crystalline sound that had haunted me for 3 years. Oh, wait, I remember. You were pregnant. How convenient. My hand froze on the silk dress I'd been reaching for. The miscarriage. She was bringing up the miscarriage. Again. That was a low blow, even for you, I whispered. Low? Darling, I'm simply stating facts. You trapped my son with a pregnancy that mysteriously ended 2 months after the wedding. Some might call that strategic. I whirled around. I lost our baby. Our baby. And you think I planned that? Cordelia examined her manicured nails. I think you're a very clever girl from a very poor background who saw an opportunity. The pregnancy got you the ring. The miscarriage got you the sympathy. And here you are, 3 years later, living in luxury while contributing absolutely nothing to this family. I work at the foundation. I manage. You play at charity work. You smile for cameras. You're a very expensive decoration, Natalie. Nothing more. The words hit like physical blows, but I'd learned not to show pain around Cordelia. She fed on it. If Adrian heard you talking to me like this… Adrian? She laughed again. Oh, my darling girl. Who do you think agrees with me? My blood went cold. What? Did you really think my son married you for love? That he wanted some small-town nobody with a state college degree and absolutely no social standing? Adrian did what he had to do when you got pregnant. But now… She stepped closer. Her perfume, something exclusive and suffocating, filling my space. Now you're just an obligation, a weight around his neck. And we Van Der Bergs Do not tolerate dead weight. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. Cordelia's eyes flicked to it, a strange smile crossing her face. You should answer that. It might be important. My hands shook as I picked up the phone. A text from an unknown number. You need to see this. He's been lying to you. They both have been. Attached was a photo. It took me a moment to understand what I was seeing. Adrian, my husband, with a beautiful brunette woman. They were at dinner, somewhere intimate and expensive. But it wasn't just dinner. His hand was on her face. They were kissing. The phone slipped from my fingers. Oh dear, Cordelia said, though her voice held no sympathy. How unfortunate, though I suppose you had to find out eventually. You knew? My voice sounded far away, like it belonged to someone else. Knew? Darling, I introduced them. Bianca Thornfield, old family, proper breeding, 3 languages, master's degree from Oxford, everything you're not, everything Adrian actually needs in a wife. The room tilted. I grabbed the edge of my dresser to steady myself. That photo is from last night, by the way, Cordelia continued casually. While you were here, sleeping in your separate bedroom, yes, I know about that too, Adrian was with the woman he actually loves. The woman he's been with for over a year. A year? The word came out as barely a whisper. 14 months to be precise. I would have told you sooner, but Adrian wanted to be strategic about the timing. The divorce, the settlements, the public relations, these things take planning. But since you've found out now, she shrugged. Well, I suppose we can move up the timeline. But Cordelia had just made a fatal mistake, because what she didn't know was that I'd been planning too, and my plan was about to change everything. I don't remember Cordelia leaving. I don't remember getting dressed or calling my driver. The next clear memory I have is sitting in a cafe across from Lake Geneva, staring at that photo on my phone while the world moved around me in a blur. 1 year. Adrian had been cheating on me for 1 year. And his mother had known, had arranged it. My phone rang. Adrian. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again. Again. Voicemail. On the 3rd call, I answered. Natalie, thank God. Where are you? His voice, the voice that used to make my heart race, now just made me feel sick. Does it matter? I asked. A pause. What's wrong? You sound strange. Do I? Maybe it's because I just found out my husband has been sleeping with another woman for over a year, while his mother knew, while everyone probably knew except me. Silence. Long, damning silence. Nat, listen. Don't you dare try to explain this away. Bianca Thornfield, your mother introduced you. Who told you that? His voice had changed, gone cold. Did my mother? She showed me a photo, Adrian, of you kissing her. Last night, while I was home alone, again, wondering why my husband never touches me anymore. Natalie, you have to understand. Understand what? That I was never good enough, that you only married me because I got pregnant, that your mother has been trying to destroy me from day one, and you just let her. It's not that simple. His voice rose, the charming facade cracking. Do you have any idea what kind of pressure I'm under? What it's like to be a Van Der Berg? My mother, the board, the expectations. So you cheated on me because of pressure. Is that really your defense? I'm trying to explain that my life is complicated. You wouldn't understand. You didn't grow up in this world. You don't know what it takes to… To what, Adrian? To be a decent human being? To honor your vows? I may not have grown up with billions, but I grew up with integrity. Something you clearly can't buy. He laughed. A harsh, bitter sound. Integrity? You want to talk about integrity? You trapped me, Natalie. You got pregnant and trapped me into a marriage I never wanted. The words hit like a physical blow. What? I was going to break up with you. That weekend in Paris, I'd planned to end things. But then you told me about the baby, and what was I supposed to do? Abandon my child? My mother would have destroyed me. The press would have crucified me. So I did the right thing. I married you. Tears streamed down my face, but my voice remained steady. And when I lost the baby, then it was too late. We were already married. The story was already out there. Tech billionaire finds love, whirlwind romance, fairy tale wedding. Divorcing you immediately would have been a PR nightmare. So we waited. And waited. And now it's been 3 years, and you're still here, playing house, contributing nothing. Contributing nothing? I gave up everything for you. My career, my friends, my family. I moved to a country where I knew no one, learned a new language, tried to be the wife you wanted. The wife I wanted? Natalie, you were never the wife I wanted. You were the mistake I had to manage. The line went dead. I sat there, phone in hand, feeling like I'd been gutted. 3 years. 3 years of trying to fit into a world that never wanted me. 3 years of Cordelia's cruelty, of Adrian's growing distance, of feeling like an imposter in my own life. But as I sat there, something shifted. The tears stopped. The shaking stopped. And in their place came something cold and clear and absolutely certain. They thought I was nothing. A mistake. Dead weight. They had no idea who they were dealing with. If you're already hooked by this story of betrayal and revenge, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications, because what's coming next will blow your mind. Trust me, you won't want to miss a single moment. I went back to the penthouse that afternoon with a plan. Not a fully formed plan, but the beginning of one. Because here's what Cordelia and Adrian didn't know about me. I wasn't always the polished, obedient wife they'd tried to mold me into. Before I met Adrian Van Der Berg at that tech conference in Portland 4 years ago, I was Natalie Reeves, data analyst, cybersecurity consultant, and one of the youngest people to identify a major vulnerability in cloud-based financial systems. I'd been recruited by 3 different firms before I graduated. I was good with numbers, better with patterns, and exceptional at finding things people wanted hidden. Then I met Adrian. Charming, brilliant, attentive Adrian, who swept me off my feet with private planes and poetry and promises of forever. I got pregnant 3 months into our relationship. An accident truly, despite what Cordelia believed. We got married in a ceremony that cost more than my parents earned in a lifetime. And then I lost the baby, and everything changed. Adrian grew distant, Cordelia grew cruel, and I became smaller, quieter, trying desperately to be whatever they wanted me to be, thinking if I just tried hard enough, loved hard enough, it would be enough. But it was never going to be enough. I saw that now. The penthouse was empty when I arrived. Adrian was at the office, though I now knew that could mean anything. I went straight to his study, a room I'd been explicitly told was off limits. Adrian needs his privacy for work, Cordelia had said during my first week in Geneva. Surely you can respect that. I'd respected it for 3 years. Not anymore. The door was locked, but I knew where Adrian kept the key. In a book on the shelf, hollowed out, something he thought was clever. Inside, I found exactly what I expected: a laptop, files, personal documents. But I also found something I didn't expect: a prenuptial agreement, one I'd never seen before. I'd signed a prenup before our wedding, a standard document that protected Adrian's assets in case of divorce. But this one was different. This one was dated 6 months ago and had been signed by Adrian and witnessed by Cordelia. It outlined a new set of terms, including a clause that would nullify my divorce settlement if infidelity or moral turpitude could be proven on my part. They were setting me up. My hands shook as I photographed every page. Then I dug deeper. Bank statements showing massive transfers to offshore accounts, emails between Adrian and his lawyers discussing evidence they were building, text messages between Adrian and Bianca going back 18 months, not 14 like Cordelia said. And then I found the emails between Cordelia and Adrian. Dozens of them. Hundreds. She's becoming a liability. The longer we wait, the more expensive she becomes. Bianca is perfect for you. Real aristocracy, not some American commoner. We need to be strategic. Make her look unstable. Document everything. The therapist I referred her to will testify if needed. My therapist, the one Cordelia had recommended after the miscarriage, saying I needed help processing. The one I'd been seeing twice a week, spilling my heart to, talking about my loneliness and grief and growing suspicion that something was wrong in my marriage. They were documenting my instability to use against me. I photographed everything, every email, every document, every piece of evidence of their conspiracy. Then I put everything back exactly as I'd found it. When Adrian came home that night, actually came home to my surprise, I was sitting in the living room, a glass of wine in hand, perfectly composed. Natalie, he looked uncomfortable, loosening his tie. About this morning. It's fine, I said calmly. He blinked. What? I overreacted. The photo, the things your mother said. I was hurt, and I lashed out. But you're right. I don't understand your world, your pressures. I'm sorry. Adrian stared at me like I'd grown a second head. You're sorry? I think I've been unfair to you, I continued, taking a sip of wine. Expecting you to be someone you're not. Demanding attention when you have so many responsibilities. Your mother mentioned I contribute nothing to this family, and she's right. But I'd like to change that. Change it how? I smiled. I want to be more involved in the business, your tech divisions, the investments. I have a background in data analysis, you know. Before we met, I was quite good at it. Maybe I could help. Adrian's expression shifted from confusion to something colder. That's not necessary. But I want to help. I want to be useful, to prove I deserve to be a Van Der Berg. Natalie, he sat down across from me, his hands clasped. I think we should talk, really talk, about our marriage, about the future. You want a divorce. I said it simply, watching his face. He had the grace to look uncomfortable. I think it would be best, for both of us. You're clearly unhappy here, and I'm not the husband you deserve. We can do this amicably, fairly. You'll be taken care of. How fairly? The prenup outlines. The original prenup? Or the new one you had drawn up 6 months ago? His face went white. How did you know about that? Adrian, I'm not stupid. Just because I've been quiet doesn't mean I've been blind. He stood abruptly. You went through my files. You went through my entire life, documenting my instability, getting my therapist to build a case against me, planning to leave me with nothing while you ride off into the sunset with Bianca Thornfield. That's not, we weren't. He ran a hand through his hair, his composure cracking. You don't understand how these things work. Then explain it to me. Fine. Yes. I want a divorce. Yes, I've been seeing Bianca. And yes, there are legal protections in place to ensure the family's assets are protected. That's how wealthy families operate, Natalie. You signed a prenup. That prenup has conditions. If you contest the divorce, if you try to claim you deserve more, those conditions will be enforced. Even though you committed adultery? Prove it. I smiled. Oh, Adrian, you really should have better passwords on your devices. His face went from white to red. You hacked my computer? I didn't have to hack anything. You used the same password for everything. Our wedding date, which is sweet, in a way, shows you're at least sentimental, even if you're not faithful. Whatever you found, whatever you think you found, won't matter. We have the best lawyers in Europe. You have nothing. Don't I? I stood, setting down my wine glass. I have emails between you and your mother, conspiring to destroy me. I have proof you've been moving money into hidden accounts. I have evidence of infidelity going back over a year. And I have something else, Adrian. Something you've forgotten. What's that? I'm smarter than you think I am, and I've been planning for this moment longer than you know. Because the truth was, I'd started suspecting 6 months ago, and I'd been preparing ever since. The next morning, I left the penthouse before dawn and took a taxi to a small office building in Geneva's Old Town. The sign outside read, Rousseau and Associates, Private Investigation. I'd hired Marcel Rousseau 2 months ago, after I'd noticed the first major discrepancy in Adrian's schedule. He'd said he was in Berlin for a conference. His credit card showed charges in Paris. When I casually mentioned the Berlin trip later, he'd look confused before quickly agreeing that yes, Berlin had been productive. That's when I knew something was deeply wrong. And that's when I stopped being the obedient wife and started being the data analyst who could spot patterns no one else saw. Marcel was waiting for me with coffee and a thick folder. He was in his 50s, rumpled and kind-eyed, with the patient demeanor of someone who'd seen every kind of human betrayal imaginable. Madame Van Der Berg, he greeted me, I have news. Good news or bad news? That depends on your perspective. He opened the folder. The affair with Bianca Thornfield, that's been ongoing for 18 months, as you suspected. But there's more. Your husband has been moving significant amounts of money out of the family accounts and into private holdings, approximately 80 million euros over the past year. I felt dizzy. 80 million? He's preparing for something big. Either he's hiding assets before the divorce, or... Marcel hesitated. Or what? Or he's in serious financial trouble and doesn't want anyone to know. Trouble? Adrian's worth billions. On paper, yes. But I've been looking into Van Der Berg Technologies' recent ventures. They've made several catastrophically bad investments in the past 2 years. Projects that failed, startups that collapsed, entire divisions that hemorrhaged money. Adrian has been covering the losses with personal funds and creative accounting. My mind raced. Does Cordelia know? That's where it gets interesting. Marcel pulled out another document. Cordelia Van Der Berg has been selling off her personal holdings, real estate, art, jewelry, quietly, through intermediaries, so it doesn't attract attention. She's liquidating assets. Why would she do that? Because the Van Der Berg empire is not as stable as they want people to believe. The tech sector has been brutal lately. Competition from Asia, regulatory issues in the EU, failed product launches. They're still wealthy, mind you, but not as invincible as they seem. I sat back, processing. So Adrian is hiding money, Cordelia is selling assets, and they're both desperate to divorce me before their financial problems become public. Exactly. If you were to divorce Adrian now, under the original prenup terms, you'd be entitled to a significant settlement. Money they might not have. But the new prenup would reduce your settlement to almost nothing on grounds of your supposed moral turpitude. Very convenient for them. I felt a cold fury building in my chest. They weren't just cruel, they were cornered, desperate, and desperate people did dangerous things. Marcel, I need everything you have, every transaction, every affair, every lie. I need it documented and unassailable. He smiled grimly. I've been working on that. But there's something else you should know. Someone else has been investigating the Van Der Bergs. Who? He slid a business card across the desk. Her name is Isabelle Laurent. She's a financial journalist based in Paris. She's been working on a story about wealthy families who've built empires on fraud and deception. The Van Der Bergs are her primary focus. Why haven't I heard about this? Because she hasn't published yet. She's been gathering evidence for 2 years. But she reached out to me last week, asking if I knew anything about Adrian Van Der Berg's personal life. Seems she's heard rumors about his marriage being troubled. My heart pounded. What did you tell her? Nothing. Yet. But I think you two should meet. Isabelle Laurent was nothing like I expected. I'd pictured a hard-edged, cynical journalist. Instead, I met a woman in her 30s, with warm brown eyes and an easy smile, sitting in a cafe in the Latin Quarter of Paris. Natalie, she said, standing to shake my hand. Thank you for meeting me. I know this must be difficult. Marcel said you're investigating my husband's family. I am. May I be frank? Please. She leaned forward, her voice low. The Van Der Bergs have been lying about their wealth for years. Oh, they're rich, don't misunderstand, but not to the level they claim. Adrian's father, Gustav, was a genius at appearing more successful than he actually was. Leverage, debt, creative accounting. He built an empire on smoke and mirrors, and when he died 5 years ago, he left behind a company that was significantly overvalued. And Cordelia? Cordelia has been trying to hold it together ever since, but the cracks are showing. Failed ventures, bad investments, competitors who are younger and faster. The Van Der Berg name still opens doors, but the foundation is crumbling. Why are you telling me this? Isabelle met my eyes. Because I've been trying to get evidence of their fraud for 2 years, and I'm close, but not close enough. I need someone on the inside, someone with access to files, accounts, communications, someone like you. You want me to spy on them. I want you to help me expose the truth, not just about their finances, but about who they really are, the cruelty, the manipulation, the lives they've destroyed to maintain their image. I thought about Cordelia's constant cruelty, Adrian's betrayal, the way they'd tried to make me feel worthless while plotting to discard me. "What do you need?" I asked. Isabel smiled. "Everything you can give me. Financial records, emails, documents. Anything that shows the gap between their public image and their private reality. And in exchange? In exchange, I help you escape, not just with a divorce settlement, with your dignity, your story, your truth. When I publish this piece, the world will know exactly who the Van Der Bergs are, and they'll know what they did to you." I thought about Adrian's face when he'd called me a mistake, Cordelia's laugh when she'd revealed his affair, the therapist's office where I'd bared my soul, not knowing I was being documented as unstable. "All right," I said, "let's burn them down." Now things are getting intense. If you're loving this revenge story, smash that like button and subscribe. We're just getting started, and the karma is about to get delicious. For the next 3 weeks, I played the role of my life. I was the perfect, compliant wife. I smiled at Cordelia's insults. I agreed with Adrian when he said we needed space. I attended charity functions and posed for photographs, all while systematically downloading every piece of damning evidence I could find. Adrian's laptop, his phone while he showered, the family accountant's files that I accessed using Adrian's credentials, every email between Cordelia and her lawyers, every text between Adrian and Bianca. I learned things that made my blood boil. Bianca wasn't just Adrian's mistress. She was pregnant, 4 months pregnant. They'd been planning to announce it as soon as our divorce was finalized, framing it as a new beginning for Adrian. I learned that Cordelia had been the one to orchestrate my miscarriage story as evidence of my emotional instability. She'd bribed the hospital staff to include details in my medical records that weren't true, painting me as someone who'd refused proper care and was difficult to treat. I learned that Adrian had taken out a massive loan using the family properties as collateral, and if he couldn't repay it within 6 months, they'd lose everything. The divorce settlement he was planning to offer me, a mere €2 million, was all he could actually afford. My rightful share under the original prenup would have been closer to 50 million. But here's what they didn't know. Every piece of evidence they'd carefully constructed against me, I now had proof was fabricated. Every lie they'd told, I had emails showing the conspiracy. Every dollar they'd hidden, I had traced. Then came the night everything accelerated. I was supposed to be at a gala in Zurich. Instead, I was in Paris, meeting with Isabel and her legal team. We were reviewing the final pieces of her exposé when my phone rang. Cordelia. "Hello," I answered, my voice carefully neutral. "Where are you?" She sounded furious. "At the gala in Zurich. Where else would I be?" "Don't lie to me, girl. I'm at the gala. You're not here." My heart raced, but I kept my voice calm. "I had a migraine. I told Adrian I was going back to the hotel." "Adrian is in Geneva. He said you were attending alone. So I'll ask again. Where are you?" I made a split-second decision. "I'm with a friend, a female friend, before you start making accusations." I needed a break from being paraded around like a prize horse. You ungrateful little... She caught herself. We need to talk, face to face, tomorrow. My residence in Lyon, Cordelia's private estate, 2 hours from Geneva. I'd been there once before, shortly after the wedding. It was opulent, isolated, and perfectly suited for the kind of conversation where no witnesses would hear you scream. Why Lyon? I asked. Because I'm done playing games. It's time you understood your position. Tomorrow, 2 o'clock. Don't be late. She hung up. Isabel looked at me, concerned. That didn't sound good. She knows something's wrong. She can sense I'm not the obedient daughter-in-law anymore. I met her eyes. How close are we to publication? 3 weeks, maybe 2 if we push. We don't have 2 weeks. Whatever they're planning, it's happening soon. Maybe at this meeting tomorrow. You can't go, Isabel said firmly. It's not safe. I have to. If I refuse, they'll know I'm onto them, and I need to keep them thinking I'm still under their control just a little longer. Marcel, who'd been quietly observing, spoke up. If you go wired. Audio and video. Whatever happens in that meeting, we'll have evidence. The drive to Lyon the next day felt surreal. My driver, a man I'd known for 3 years, was making small talk about the weather while I sat in the back seat, wearing a designer dress with a tiny camera pinned to my collar and a recording device in my purse. Cordelia's estate was exactly as I remembered. A sprawling manor house with manicured gardens, surrounded by walls that ensured complete privacy. The staff who greeted me were stiff and formal, leading me through marble hallways to a drawing room where Cordelia waited. She wasn't alone. Adrian sat beside her, and across from them was a man I didn't recognize. Mid-50s, expensive suit, predatory eyes. Natalie, Cordelia said, not standing. Sit. It wasn't an invitation. I sat. This is Jonathan Weiss, she continued, our family's lead attorney. We're here to discuss your divorce. I haven't agreed to a divorce, I said quietly. Adrian laughed. You don't have to agree. We're informing you. Jonathan Weiss opened a briefcase and pulled out a document. Mrs. Van Der Berg, your husband is petitioning for divorce on grounds of irreconcilable differences and your documented emotional instability. We have testimony from your therapist, Dr. Helena Strauss, that you've been experiencing severe depression, paranoid ideation, and have expressed thoughts of self-harm. My blood went cold. That's not true. We have her session notes, Cordelia said smoothly. Very detailed accounts of your deteriorating mental state. It's tragic, really. The miscarriage clearly affected you more than anyone realized. Those notes are privileged, I said. Not if there's concern for your safety, Jonathan Weiss replied. Dr. Strauss felt ethically obligated to share her concerns with your family. I looked at Adrian. You did this. You got my therapist to fabricate evidence against me. No one fabricated anything, he said coldly. You've been unstable since we got married. Everyone can see it. The mood swings, the isolation, the constant victim mentality. Victim mentality? You've been gaslighting me for 3 years. And there it is, Cordelia said, gesturing to Jonathan Weiss. The paranoia, the accusations, the inability to take responsibility for her own mental health issues. This is exactly what we've been dealing with. Jonathan Weiss slid the document across the table. This is a settlement offer. You'll receive 2 million euros. This penthouse in Geneva as your primary residence for 1 year. and a confidentiality agreement that prevents you from discussing the marriage or the family publicly. In exchange, you agree to the divorce, waive all further claims to the Van der Berg assets, and seek continued psychiatric treatment. And if I refuse, then we proceed with a contested divorce, he said, which will be very public, very expensive for you, and will end with you getting far less than we're offering now. We have documentation of your instability. We have evidence that you've been accessing Adrian's private files without permission, technically corporate espionage, given his company's sensitive information. We have witnesses who will testify to your erratic behavior. My mind raced. This was it. This was their play. Frame me as mentally unstable, use my own therapist against me, threaten me with criminal charges, and force me to accept a pittance while they protected their crumbling empire. I need time to think, I said. You have 24 hours, Cordelia said. After that, we file the paperwork, and things get very unpleasant for you. I stood, my legs shaking, but my voice steady. I'll have my answer by tomorrow. As I turned to leave, Cordelia's voice stopped me. Natalie, one more thing. Whatever you think you know, whatever you think you've found, it won't be enough. We've been protecting this family's interests for generations. You're a nobody from nowhere who got lucky for a few years. Don't make the mistake of thinking you can fight us. I looked back at her, at Adrian, at their smug, certain faces, and I smiled. You're right about one thing, Cordelia. I am nobody from nowhere. But you know what people like me learn growing up? How to fight, how to survive, how to win against people who think they're untouchable. I met her eyes. See you in 24 hours. They thought they had me trapped. They had no idea I'd been recording everything. I drove straight back to Paris, to Isabel's office, where she and her legal team were waiting. I uploaded the recording from the meeting, and we listened to it 3 times, each time finding new depths to Cordelia and Adrian's deception. This is it, Isabel said, her eyes bright. This is enough. The conspiracy, the fabricated medical records, the intimidation. Combined with the financial fraud evidence, we have everything. How fast can you publish? I asked. Tonight, I can have the story ready for the morning edition. But Natalie, you need to understand. Once this goes public, there's no going back. They will come after you with everything they have. Let them, I said. I'm done being afraid. But Marcel looked troubled. There's something else we need to consider. That lawyer, Jonathan Weiss, mentioned criminal charges for accessing Adrian's files. That's a real threat. If they can convince prosecutors you committed corporate espionage, then we need insurance, I said. Something that makes prosecuting me more trouble than it's worth. Like what? Isabel asked. I thought for a moment. Adrian's loan, the one that's about to default. Who gave him the money? Marcel flipped through his files. A private equity firm based in Luxembourg, Steinberg Capital. Get me everything on them. Partners, portfolio companies, recent deals, everything. An hour later, we had our answer. Steinberg Capital was involved in several questionable deals, including one that was currently under investigation for fraud. More importantly, one of their managing partners was Victor Steinberg, who was married to Adrian's cousin, Juliana Van Der Berg. It's a family deal, I said, which means Cordelia probably guaranteed it, which means if it defaults, it's not just Adrian who goes down, It's the entire family's reputation. Isabel grinned. And if we threaten to expose the loan, the default, and the family's involvement in Steinberg's questionable deals, they won't dare file charges against me because I'll take them all down with me. That's mutually assured destruction, Marcel warned. Are you sure you want to go that route? I thought about 3 years of Cordelia's cruelty, Adrian's betrayal, the baby I'd lost while they plotted against me, the life I'd given up, trying to be good enough for people who were never going to accept me. Absolutely, I said. Draft a letter. Make it clear that if they pursue any legal action against me, I'll release everything I have to every media outlet in Europe. Financial fraud, fabricated medical records, extramarital affairs, the Steinberg loan, all of it. And the divorce settlement, Isabel asked. I want what I'm legally owed under the original prenup, 50 million euros. Plus, this goes public anyway, not as revenge, but as truth. The world deserves to know who the Van Der Bergs really are. Isabel's article went live at 6 a.m. the next morning, on the front page of Le Monde, and simultaneously on 3 major financial news websites. The headline read, House of Cards, How One of Europe's Wealthiest Families Built an Empire on Deception. It was devastating. Every detail laid out with precision. The fraudulent valuations, the hidden debts, the desperate asset sales. Adrian's affair with Bianca and her pregnancy. The conspiracy to destroy me using fabricated medical records. Cordelia's history of destroying anyone who threatened the family's image, including 2 previous employees who'd been paid off to prevent lawsuits, and most damning of all, the Steinberg loan and its impending default, which would potentially trigger a collapse of several Van Der Berg holdings. By 8 a.m., my phone was exploding with calls. Adrian, Cordelia, Jonathan Weiss. I ignored them all. By 10 a.m., news trucks were parked outside the Geneva penthouse and Cordelia's Lion estate. By noon, the Swiss Financial Regulatory Board announced an investigation into Van Der Berg Technologies. By 2 p.m., the exact time I was supposed to give them my answer, I received an email from Jonathan Weiss. The subject line, Settlement Negotiation. I opened it in Isabel's office, with Marcel and Isabel looking over my shoulder. Mrs. Van Der Berg, in light of recent public attention and to avoid further damage to all parties involved, we are prepared to offer a revised settlement. 45 million euros transferred immediately to accounts of your choosing. The Geneva penthouse, with no time limit on residency, full release from any confidentiality agreements. A public statement from Mr. Van Der Berg, taking full responsibility for the marriage's dissolution. All fabricated medical documentation destroyed and formal apologies from Dr. Strauss and our office. No criminal charges filed regarding accessed files. This offer expires in 48 hours. We trust you'll recognize this as a generous resolution to a difficult situation. Regards, Jonathan Weiss. I stared at the screen. 45 million euros. Freedom. Vindication. It's a good offer, Marcel said quietly. Maybe even a great one. It's 50 million less than they tried to cheat you out of, Isabel countered, and only 5 million less than you're legally owed. Take it, Marcel advised. Dragging this through courts could take years and cost millions in legal fees. This way, you walk away now, wealthy and free. I thought about it, really thought about it. The money would change my life. I could go anywhere, do anything, never have to think about the Van der Bergs again. But then I thought about all the other women Cordelia had probably destroyed, all the people Adrian had stepped on climbing to the top, all the victims of their cruelty who never got justice. No, I said. I want 50 million, what I'm legally owed. I want a full public apology from both Adrian and Cordelia. And I want them to establish a foundation in my name, the Natalie Reeves Foundation for Women's Economic Independence, funded with 10 million euros to help women escape abusive marriages. They'll never agree to that, Marcel said. Then we go to court, and I release every single piece of evidence I have, not just to the press, but to the regulatory boards, the tax authorities, and anyone else who's interested. I'm done negotiating with bullies. Isabel was grinning. I'll send the counteroffer. 24 hours later, I got my answer. They agreed to everything. Every single thing. 50 million euros transferred that afternoon. The penthouse deeded in my name. A public statement from Adrian that was published in major European newspapers, taking full responsibility and apologizing for his treatment of his wife during their marriage. A separate statement from Cordelia that was clearly written through gritted teeth, expressing regret for any pain caused to Mrs. Van der Berg. And the foundation, fully funded, with its first board meeting scheduled for the following month. I signed the divorce papers in Isabel's office, with Marcel as witness. When it was done, I felt something I hadn't felt in 3 years. Light. What will you do now? Isabel asked. First, sleep for about a week. Then, I smiled. Then I'm going home, to Portland, to see my family, whom I haven't visited in 2 years because Cordelia always found reasons why I couldn't leave Geneva. And after that, I'm going to use this money to build something real, something good. Something that helps people like me who get trapped by people like them. You're a fighter, Marcel said, shaking my hand. I'm glad I could help. And you're a story, Isabel added, hugging me. The woman who took down a dynasty. I have a feeling this won't be the last we hear of you. But Isabel was more right than she knew, because karma wasn't done with the Van der Bergs yet. I left Geneva 3 days after the divorce was finalized. I didn't tell anyone I was leaving. I just packed a single suitcase, left the keys to the penthouse on the kitchen counter, and took a taxi to the airport. The flight to Portland was long, but I spent it sleeping more peacefully than I had in years. When I landed, my mother was waiting at arrivals, and when she hugged me, I cried for the first time since this whole nightmare began. My baby, she whispered. My strong, brilliant baby. You're home. I'm home, I agreed, and I'm never letting anyone make me feel small again. I spent the next month in Portland, reconnecting with my family, walking through my old neighborhood, remembering who I was before I became Mrs. Van der Berg. My father, a high school teacher who'd always believed in me, sat with me one evening on their porch. You know what I'm proudest of, he said. Not that you married a billionaire, not that you got a big settlement, but that when they tried to break you, you broke them instead. That's my girl. But Portland was just the first stop. I had plans, big plans. The Natalie Reeves Foundation opened its doors 3 months later, based in Seattle. We offered legal assistance, financial counseling, and emergency housing for women trying to leave wealthy, powerful spouses who were using money and influence to trap them. Within the first year, we helped 47 women escape situations similar to mine. I also went back to school, not because I needed to, but because I wanted to. A master's degree in data science, which I completed in 18 months while running the foundation. I was rebuilding myself, piece by piece, into someone stronger than before. But I kept track of the Van Der Bergs. I couldn't help it. And what I learned was delicious. Isabel's exposé had been picked up by international media. The Swiss regulatory investigation expanded to include tax fraud. Adrian's company lost 3 major contracts because partners didn't want to be associated with the scandal. The Steinberg loan defaulted, exactly as predicted. The properties used as collateral were seized. Cordelia had to sell her Lion estate, the very place where she'd tried to intimidate me into accepting pennies to cover debts. Bianca Thornfield, pregnant, and thinking she'd secured her place as the next Mrs. Van Der Berg, gave birth to a baby boy. Adrian acknowledged paternity, but refused to marry her. According to Isabel's sources, he'd told Bianca that marriage was too complicated right now, and that they should wait until things settled down. Bianca leaked texts to a gossip magazine showing Adrian promising to marry her as soon as the divorce was final. His betrayal of her mirrored his betrayal of me, and the public turned on him even more viciously. Van Der Berg Technology's stock price dropped 40%. Several board members resigned. Adrian was forced to step down as CEO, though he remained on the board. Cordelia, once the Queen of Geneva's social scene, became persona non grata. The charities she'd chaired asked her to step down. Friends stopped calling. She was seen less and less at public events, her carefully constructed image shattered beyond repair. But here's where karma truly showed her hand. 2 years after my divorce, Juliana Van Der Berg, Adrian's cousin, married to Victor Steinberg, filed for divorce. And in her filing, she included evidence that Victor and Adrian had been embezzling money from family trusts for years, using Steinberg Capital as a shell company to hide the theft. The revelation triggered a cascade of investigations. Criminal charges were filed. Adrian and Victor were both indicted for fraud, and Cordelia, oh Cordelia, was named as an unindicted co-conspirator, accused of knowing about the scheme and helping to cover it up. I was in my office at the foundation when Isabel called with the news. "Have you seen?" she asked, breathless. "I'm reading the indictment now," I said, scrolling through the legal document that had just been made public. "This is... wow. They're looking at serious prison time. Adrian could get 10 to 15 years, Victor maybe more. And even though Cordelia wasn't charged, her reputation is completely destroyed. She'll never recover from this." I sat back in my chair, thinking about the woman who'd called me worthless, who'd orchestrated my destruction, who'd thought she was untouchable. "Good," I said simply. "She deserves every bit of it." But the story didn't end there. 3 years after my divorce, 5 years after I'd walked into that Geneva penthouse as a new bride, I was invited to speak at a conference on economic empowerment in Paris. The foundation had grown beyond anything I'd imagined, with branches in 6 countries and partnerships with major law firms and financial institutions. After my speech, a woman approached me. She was young, maybe mid-20s, well-dressed, but nervous. "Mrs. I mean, Ms. Reeves, she corrected herself. I'm Sophie. Sophie Margolis. I need help. We found a quiet corner, and she told me her story. She was engaged to a wealthy businessman's son. She'd recently discovered he was cheating. His family was pressuring her to stay quiet, saying the wedding was too close and too important to call off. They'd implied there would be consequences if she embarrassed them. As she spoke, I saw myself 6 years ago, scared, alone, thinking I had no options. Sophie, I said, taking her hand, here's what you need to understand. You always have options. They want you to think you're powerless, but you're not, and you're not alone. I gave her the foundation's card and the contact information for one of our best lawyers. We'll help you, I promised. And if this family thinks they can bully you into silence, they're about to learn a very expensive lesson about underestimating women. She left with tears in her eyes, clutching the card like a lifeline. That night, as I walked along the Seine, I thought about how far I'd come. From Natalie Reeves, the small-town girl who fell for a billionaire's lies, to Natalie Reeves, founder of an organization that had helped hundreds of women find their strength and their freedom. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I saw your speech today. You've come a long way from the girl I married. I'm glad you found your voice. Adrian. After 3 years of silence, he was reaching out. I stared at the message for a long moment. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Part of me wanted to write back something scathing. Instead, I typed, I always had a voice. You just never bothered to listen. I hope prison teaches you to hear women when they speak. Good luck with your trial. I hit send and blocked the number, because that chapter of my life was closed. Adrian Van Der Berg was part of my past, not my future. And my future was bright. The trial became international news. Adrian and Victor were both convicted and sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. Cordelia, though not criminally charged, was forced to testify, and her testimony revealed just how much she'd known and enabled over the years. The Van Der Berg empire collapsed. The company was sold off in pieces to pay legal fees and restitution. The family name, once synonymous with wealth and success, became a cautionary tale about fraud and hubris. Bianca Thornfield wrote a memoir about her relationship with Adrian, revealing even more details about his manipulation and lies. She and I never met, but through mutual contacts, we exchanged messages of support. She was raising her son alone, having finally accepted that Adrian had never truly loved her either. As for me, the foundation continued to grow. We expanded into advocacy work, pushing for legal reforms that protected spouses in high-asset divorces. I testified before Parliament twice, sharing my story and calling for changes to laws that allowed wealthy individuals to weaponize therapy records and fabricate evidence. I never remarried. I dated occasionally, but I was cautious about trusting again. My therapist, a real one I chose for myself, said that was normal. You survived a war, she told me. It's okay to be careful about who you let into your foxhole. 8 years after leaving Geneva, I returned for the first time. Not to visit the penthouse, I'd sold it years ago, using the money to fund the foundation, but to speak at a university about financial literacy and protecting yourself in relationships with power imbalances. After my speech, I took a walk through the old town. Past the cafe where I'd sat after discovering Adrian's affair, past the streets where I'd once felt so small and lost. But I didn't feel small anymore. I felt powerful. I felt free. My phone rang. The Foundation's executive director. "Natalie, you need to see this." She sounded excited. "The European Parliament just passed the Reeves Amendment, named after you. It prevents therapy records from being used in divorce proceedings unless there's evidence of criminal activity. It's huge. You did this." I stopped walking, right there on the cobblestone street, and let the news sink in. A law, named after me, protecting women from the exact kind of abuse I'd endured. "We did this," I corrected. "All of us. Every woman who shared her story, every lawyer who fought these cases, every person who believed we could make things better." But inside, I was glowing, because Cordelia Van Der Berg had once told me I was nothing, a mistake, a weight, and now my name was literally written into law, protecting women across an entire continent. I thought about sending her a message, something petty and triumphant, but I didn't need to. The best revenge wasn't a message or a gesture. The best revenge was living well, building something meaningful, turning pain into purpose. The best revenge was knowing that every woman we helped, every law we changed, every life we touched, that was my answer to everyone who tried to break me. I pulled out my phone and took a selfie, right there in Geneva, with the Alps in the background. I posted it to the Foundation's social media with a simple caption. 8 years ago, I left this city broken and scared. Today, I returned as someone who's helped hundreds of women find their strength. To anyone currently trapped in a situation where someone powerful is trying to make you feel worthless, you're not. You're stronger than they know. And you're not alone. There's always a way forward. Keep fighting. The post went viral within hours. Thousands of comments from women sharing their own stories. Hundreds of messages from people asking for help. And somewhere, I like to imagine, Cordelia saw it. Saw what I'd become. Saw how completely her attempt to destroy me had failed. I hope it kept her up at night. I was 43 years old when I received the letter. It came to the Foundation's main office, forwarded from a law firm in Switzerland. "Dear Ms. Reeves, we regret to inform you of the death of Cordelia Van Der Berg, who passed away on October 14th following a lengthy illness. As per her final instructions, we are contacting you regarding a matter she wished to address before her death. Enclosed is a personal letter she wrote to you, to be delivered only after her passing. Additionally, Mrs. Van Der Berg has left you a bequest in her will, a collection of personal documents and journals that she believed you would understand the importance of. These are being held at our offices for you to collect at your convenience. Our condolences on this difficult news." I stared at the letter for a long time. Cordelia was dead. The woman who'd haunted my nightmares for years, who'd represented everything cruel and powerful in the world, was gone. I felt nothing. No joy, no sadness, just a strange emptiness. With shaking hands, I opened the second envelope. "Natalie, if you're reading this, I'm dead, and I suspect you're wondering why I've reached out to you after all these years of silence. I'm dying as I write this. Cancer. Ironic, isn't it? I spent my whole life trying to control everything, only to be felled by my own cells rebelling against me. I've had a lot of time to think in these final months. about my life, my choices, the people I've hurt, and I need you to know something. You were right about everything. The Van der Berg Empire was built on lies. Gustav knew it, I knew it, Adrian knew it. We were all complicit in maintaining a fiction of wealth and power that was crumbling from within. And when you came along, this bright, genuine person who actually loved my son, you represented everything we weren't. Authentic, honest, real. I hated you for that. I hated that you made me look at myself and see the monster I'd become. So I tried to destroy you first, before you could expose us. But you didn't break. You fought back, and you won. The foundation you built, the laws you changed, the women you've helped. I followed it all from a distance. You took your pain and transformed it into something beautiful, something that actually matters. I took my pain and used it to hurt others, to build walls, to make sure no one ever got close enough to see how empty I really was inside. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know that in my final days, watching what you've accomplished, I felt something I haven't felt in decades. Shame. Real, deep shame for who I was and what I did to you. The documents I'm leaving you are my personal journals. Decades worth of notes about the family's finances, the fraud, the lies, everything. I've also included evidence of other wrongdoings, things even Isabelle Laurent never uncovered. Tax evasion schemes, bribed officials, destroyed competitors. Use them however you see fit. Write a book, give them to prosecutors, burn them for all I care. But I wanted you to have the whole truth. You earned it. You once told me that people from nowhere know how to fight. You were right. And I, with all my privilege and power, never stood a chance against someone who actually had something real to fight for. I hope you found happiness, Natalie. Real happiness. The kind I was never capable of understanding. One last thing. Adrian asked about you, in prison. He wrote to me several times, asking if I had news of you. I never answered. But I think he finally understood what he lost. Not your money or your beauty, but your goodness, your strength, the chance to be a better person because he knew you. I hope that provides some small satisfaction. Goodbye, Natalie. You won, completely and absolutely. You were everything I wasn't, and that's why you'll be remembered long after my name fades into nothing. Cordelia. I read the letter 3 times. Then I called Isabelle, who was now a senior editor at Le Monde and still my closest friend. She left me everything, I said, when Isabelle answered. Her journals, evidence of decades of fraud. It's all mine. What are you going to do with it? I thought about it. About revenge. About justice. About closure. I'm going to turn it over to the authorities, I said finally. Let them determine if there are any cases worth pursuing. But I'm also going to write about it, not a memoir about me, a book about how wealthy families use power to destroy people and how those people can fight back, using her own words as evidence. That's perfect, Isabelle said. She tried to bury you, and instead, you're going to use her own confession to help others. She said I won, I continued. And maybe I did. But it's not about winning anymore. It's about making sure what happened to me doesn't happen to someone else. The book, The Price of Silence, One Woman's Fight Against a Dynasty of Lies, was published 2 years later. It combined my story with Cordelia's journals, creating a devastating portrait of how power corrupts and how victims can reclaim their voices. It became a bestseller across Europe and North America. Universities used it in courses on ethics, law, and gender studies. Several countries cited it when passing new legislation protecting spouses in high-asset divorces. Adrian, still in prison, tried to block publication. He failed. The courts ruled that the story was too important, the public interest too great. I donated all proceeds from the book to the foundation. Millions of euros that helped us expand into 15 countries and help thousands more women. I'm 50 years old now. The foundation is led by someone younger and more energetic, though I remain on the board. I split my time between Seattle and Paris, consulting for organizations that work on gender equality and economic justice. I did eventually remarry to a high school teacher named David, who reminds me of my father. Someone kind, genuine, who thinks my story is incredible, but loves me for who I am now, not who I was or what I survived. We have a quiet life, dinners with friends, weekend hikes, summers traveling to places I always wanted to see, but never could when I was trapped in Geneva. But every few months, I get an email or a letter from someone who read the book, someone who was trapped in a marriage with a powerful, manipulative person, someone who thought they had no options. And I write back to every single one the same message. You are not alone. You are not powerless. You are stronger than they want you to believe. Fight back. I did, and I won. You can too. Last month, I received a letter from the Swiss prison system. Adrian was being released early after serving 9 years of his 12-year sentence. The letter asked if I wanted to be notified of his release date and location. I checked a box that said, "No further contact desired," and sent it back. Because Adrian Van Der Berg is no longer part of my story. He's a footnote, a chapter I closed years ago. He doesn't deserve any more of my energy or attention. Instead, I'm focused on the present, on the life I built from the ashes of the one they tried to destroy, on the women I've helped, the laws I've changed, the future I'm creating. Cordelia was right about one thing. I won. Completely and absolutely. But more importantly, I survived. I thrived. I turned trauma into triumph, pain into purpose, victimhood into victory. And that's the real revenge. Not destroying them, though they did a pretty good job of that themselves, but becoming someone so strong, so accomplished, so happy that their attempt to break me seems laughable in retrospect. I am Natalie Reeves. I am a survivor. I am a fighter. I am enough. And no one, not a billionaire, not a dynasty, not anyone, will ever make me forget that again. If this story moved you, if it inspired you, if it reminded you that you're stronger than you think, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because stories like this matter. They show us that no matter how powerful someone is, no matter how trapped you feel, there's always a way forward. Always. Stay strong. Keep fighting. And remember, karma is patient, but she always collects her debts. Thank you for watching. Until next time.